Let's dive right in. The first thing that I wanted to talk about, because it's I wouldn't say plastered across your website, but it's a clear identity that I found when I was looking more into you and your work. And it was a few words. It was authentic, natural, connected. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit more on those type of brand identities?
Yeah, the word authentic especially kind of got a bad rap for a little while there, like people were, tossing around. They're like, oh, authentic. Okay. I had a video coach. She was coaching me on storytelling for my films that I make, for the videos that I make and whatnot. And so I joined this mastermind or whatever. And I was like, oh, here are my, like identifiers, here are my keywords. And one of them is authentic. And she was like, wah, wah. She literally made that noise to me and said, she's like, oh, you really can't put that on anything. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to write it out. And so I did. It's going really well because, turns out that once people realized what my version of authenticity was, it was something that was really going to resonate with them as well. And so, I do, authentic, meaning who you truly are. And especially in terms of photography and my subjects, all portraits. So authentic, who you really are, natural. I'm not, taking you outside of your normal range of movement. I'm not making you, like go bouldering if you're, like wearing high heels or things like that, like natural range of movement, things that, I'm putting you in situations that you would actually really be in, right? So true to who you are is the authenticity. The natural piece is, I'm putting you in a place that you would really be. Like, I would actually go take a hike here with my friends, and we just kind of, like tool around. And the connected piece is the piece that really became kind of a cornerstone of my business and my philosophy, because so many people are afraid of teenagers, and I work almost exclusively with teenagers. And there's seems to be this barrier in terms of, age, when we go or start thinking about adolescence, or maybe it's even some of our own traumas that we're carrying from our own adolescence, right? And teenagers are scary, I don't want to, be in that. And the connected piece comes in the fact that I'm not afraid to embrace a teenager where they really are.
And so how did these words and these identities, more like philosophies, I guess, in your professional, personal way of living, how did they come about? Where was the genesis of these types of philosophies?
Yeah, I actually I started working with teenagers fresh out of high school when I was still, technically a teenager myself. And so I have worked with and mentored teens for over 20 years at this point. And so that was the genesis. It was, these were the kids that were coming over to my house. They were, eating my food and jumping on my couch. I talk about that all the time because I'm still bitter about the fact that they broke my couch. But these were kids that I was just like doing life with. And then, you start a business, and right, I feel like first year photographers, are kind of like, okay, I have to know all the right editing. I have to know all the right gear. I have to know all the this, right? And I started down that path, and then kind of had some really wise mentors who leaned in and were like, no, 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 that stuff will fade, if you don't have a purpose. And it kind of evolved from there to say, well, these are the things that I was doing already in my everyday life. This was what my mission was. This is what I valued. I valued connected time with the teenagers that I mentored. And as soon as I brought that in to my work with clients and took that same approach, it was just, I mean, absolutely, 180 in terms of how passionate I was about the work that I was doing and how excited I was to go to every single photo shoot. And, yeah, it completely changed my business.
Yeah, that type of passion is contagious, right? And not just within the photography community or within other professions that are similar, but much more so on the client side, right? If you're working with a customer and a client, they can see that passion. They can really see that desire and that just enthusiasm to have that purpose and to stick by it. Often photographers, and maybe you can touch on this as well, but they get, like you said, when you start, you get wrapped up with lots of different things, and then you get wrapped up with what's my style and what's my voice and what am I trying to do. But I think once you are clear and have that clarity around your purpose and around your vision and around, okay, this is me, this is where I'm comfortable, it kind of just leaves everything else aside, and you can really focus on what's important, which is connecting with your models, your subjects, the people you're photographing, or the environments, whatever it might be. So, on that note, and you mentioned this earlier, what people seem to be afraid or a little bit intimidated or whatever it might be, nervous around teenagers. Why do you think that is? Why is that in your experience?
Well, I have a very honest I have a very honest answer about that. Teenagers will not suffer anyone's bullshit. And that is really intimidating if you have this, oh, here's my facade, this is me in professional, like work mode, but you're not being, genuine with them in any way. And I think that's really intimidating. And they also can sense our insecurities, and that's a vulnerable place to potentially be, you know. Finally, I mean, sometimes too, like the experience, I think, with teenagers is like, you go into a coffee shop right when school is left out and you see like a little group of teenagers, right? And that's a really intimidating thing because they're all like in it, with each other. And it's kind of like observing some, anthropological study, right? And so I think depending on what other photographers kind of experience has been with teenagers, they haven't had the opportunity to see them when the walls are down, right? And instead of like out in public or whatever, or they have some of their own insecurities themselves that they're maybe still carrying from from middle school or from high school or things like that. And it's hard to think back to what was that time like, especially if you have any wounds that you need to heal around that age or that time in your life.
Yeah, and you talk like you. I mean, we all have experience of being teenagers, but you talk as if you're so connected with that memory and the feeling of being a teenager. Touch upon a little bit more detail about your background and how you got into photography. And it's really interesting the way you kind of grew up with it as a teenager and you started photographing back then. If I'm correct, can you explain a little bit about your the starting years
The
in photography?
background, actually, no, I didn't pick up a camera. I didn't get a DSLR until 2011 was when I got my first DSLR. What I was doing before that, though, I had a 25-year long career as a dancer, and I taught dance for a decade before before I left the dance world behind. And so teaching dance choreography, highly artistic, but who was I working with the entire time that I was teaching? Those same teenagers, right? So I'm in there, they're coming in every single week and they're with me and and again the walls are down because when you teach somebody for multiple years at a time and you're seeing them every single week, right? You're really getting to know who they are not only as an athlete or as an artist, because dance combines both athletics and art, but also who they are as as a person, kind of what makes them tick. So I gave up dance when I moved across the country. So I moved from North Carolina to Seattle, Washington, a while back, and gave up dance. I had two little children, and it was kind of that first year there was just honestly, it was just miserable. Um, there's no other way to say it. I had left my entire support system. I was, this little Southern gal who thought that I was going to be, that the house that I had bought, I was going to live in forever and be buried in the backyard, or whatever.
How old were you at this time?
It was 2010, so I was 26 when we moved. Yeah. And yeah, two little kids, left my support structure and everything, moved it 3,000 miles away. And then, and all of this, the Zoom calls and the, FaceTime, it didn't exist. And so, it was just phone calls or writing letters. home.
Landline calls.
Landline calls.
Landline calls.
I did not have a smartphone, so I mean, like, it was 2010.